I'm here now, and this is all I got, and right now this is it. So what am I doing with it? And this is what I choose to do.
Another 10 years from now, or 30 years from now, 200 years from now, who's going to know who Eddie Carroll is? Who's going to know who Roderick Edwards? What? Why? I mean, we can leave our mark on the world, but what does that matter? I mean, everybody knows who Adolf Hitler is, right? Maybe he existed more than Bill existed, because Bill's name's not going to be known as well as Adolf Hitler. So,
Hey, you don't know that yet. You don't.
well, we don't know that.
I guess where I see a positive in being just adopted and white would be the fact that there's nobody going out there saying, all you adopted whites are being oppressed by these groups. We need to go get them.
It's like they can lock me up in here, but they can't lock me up in here. I read every day. I read a book every single day. I'm constantly learning, constantly reading. So in here, he's free because he's able to continuously grow and learn. He might be locked up in these walls, but he'll never be locked up in his mind.
My soul is breaking free. You awaken me. Stolen my time to move on, but now I can see seizing destiny. Welcome to my evolution. Leveling up.
Promoting the books without actually having to promote the books.
Yes, that's the way.
Oh, dude, you gotta put it.
I think I just heard somebody on a podcast saying the best way to market is act like people don't realize you're marketing.
Multi marketing. Who said that, dude? That dude must be dumb.
Yeah. Dumbest guy in the room.
All right, welcome back to the dumbest guy in the room. We've had this guest on before, but we reviewed a book of his. I'm sure you do remember. But we're here today to talk a little deeper into specifically two topics today, epistemology and existentialism. He had to use big words because, well, he's an author and he knows big words. But look, man, you know you better than I know you or anybody else knows you, Roderick. Could you just kind of introduce yourself, give me a little bit of your background again so that, if anybody hasn't seen that, they just know who you are before we get deep into this conversation?
Well, like you said, I'm an author. I've been an author for about 3 years, 20 different books, as you see them scrolling back behind me, on a variety of topics from what we talked about last time, which is how to overthrow a government. And then right now, we're going to talk about, you said, epistemology and existentialism. I was kind of joking when I said that, but that's what I launch on that we will.
Dude, but I love it.
Basically,
I loved it.
Basically, these are kind of things I've been thinking about. I mean, why do we exist and why do we know what we know? And how do we know what we know? Is basically what these two topics are about. So I'm just a little nerdy guy who's age 54 almost now and been studying this kind of stuff all my life. So, and here we are.
So how did you get to, that's where I just kind of want to, where did you get to a point where, like, because both of these terms, for anybody that doesn't know, I'll define them for anybody that doesn't know what they are, because I even personally, I'm the dumbest guy in the room. I had to really look up what it meant. And when I looked it up, I was like, wow, like this explains me.
Right.
So like these words that I never really thought of. Now I did match up like, and I don't know how true this is because it's a very brief amount of research I was able to do. But like the existentialism was like, from what I've understood, it's very connected to Nietzsche, which I've read a lot of his stuff, which is probably why I kind of was like, wow, this term is very familiar to me. But dude, I keep pronouncing these wrong, so I'm probably gonna get it wrong a lot. Epistemology is basically the theory of knowledge in regards to the method. Or Ed, do you have the definitions up over there?
Yeah.
Why don't you read them for me, pal?
All right.
Epistemology.
Epistemology is the theory of knowledge, especially when regard to its methods, validity, and scope. Epistemology is the investigation of what distinguishes justified belief from opinion.
Right. And how we know what we know is just kind of my simplified definition. How
Right.
do we know what we know, and what method do we get to know that? And like you said, difference between opinion. I get so upset when people say that's just your opinion. I try not to really give my opinion unless I do, and then I'll tell somebody this is just my opinion. Usually, it's here's the whole evidence, here's some facts, and here's where it might lead to. It's not my opinion. It's just the facts. I
This
try
is
to
the facts.
Right.
And then my opinion of these facts
Right.
are
right.
So
Right.
I actually just had this conversation with a family member, honestly, in regards to Trump. He made a post something about him. I won't get all into that, but when I asked him, I said, look, well, let's just lay out the facts, right? The last 4 years, was there a war? No, we didn't have a war. No war was started in his when he was president. I said inflation low, gas prices low. I said these are facts. He said also what are facts? The media has now been I don't want to say we are very divided, but we're definitely more divided than I've ever seen, right? But it's a fact that we are separated by different human dimensions today, more so than I think that we were before, at least in my reality, or my perspective, I should say. But my perspective, I think, is my reality. I said those are things that actually happened. They took place in our life. Now, whether or not it was Trump's good doing that made the economy that way, made these peace treaties and got no war, and whether it was Trump or not, I mean, he had a part to play. Was it all him? I don't know. Now, if you want to say that it was whoever did it, in my opinion, that's an opinion. Like when you start blaming intentions and putting evil on things, and like that, to me, is an opinion of a fact. Like, for example, Ukraine and Russia right now, they're at war. Now, wherever you want to throw your judgment around, especially as an American, not living over there and seeing this stuff firsthand, it's like a lot of it's all opinion. It's not, we don't know if it's the truth. And that's the kind of the goal of researching it, is to find the truth. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, and you just brought up Trump, and I think it's important to talk about this. So the whole, let's go, Brandon. Everybody understands this phrase. They've heard it by now.
Besides Brandon.
Right. Why is that phrase important to us, despite Trump? Here's the reason why. It's because we were watching the TV, we're watching a reporter stand there and interview I think it was NASCAR, if I recall right, some kind of racing guy. Standing there, and she's interviewing him. In the background, they're saying, and I think I heard you cuss in this program before, so I think I can cuss.
Yeah, you're good.
They're all shouting, "Fuck Joe Biden." That's what they're shouting. We all can hear it. The reporter has the audacity to sit there and say, "Look, they're calling your name. Let's go, Brandon." This is the kind of garbage we have to deal with right now, this misinformation right in front of our faces. And so what you said about the Russian Ukraine thing, we have to dig through this. And now we're being told that we can only get news from certain sources. Now they're trying to black out all sources from Russia, for example. Don't let Russian get their sources out there. Get rid of all their Russian news media, so we can't even see their side, even if we wanted to.
Right.
So it's important. And then again, how's this all tie in? We're talking about knowledge. We're the control of knowledge now, whether it's social media, Facebook, where they're all constantly fact checking. Fact check. This is partially true. You get into it, and a lot of times the fact check is nonsense. You look at it, it's like it's all true. The only thing that wasn't true is the fact that the color of the shirt of the person was wearing was not blue or something like that. It was just stupid, but they make it sound like, before you get into it, that the whole thing might be questionable. So it's just crazy.
Correct. Yeah, man. And from what I've noticed, all and I think it's insane, right? Like before, when Trump would be like fake news, right? And everybody jumped on it. They're like, all right, fake news. And all of the right and Trumpers. And again, I'm not I was a fan of Trump. I jumped off just because I don't see it going I don't like labeling myself as that, because I do think it could go the wrong way. It could. I think that group of people could get themselves into something that they don't know that they're headed towards, right? I think that's possible.
You should never put your faith in one person that much anyhow.
Correct. So that's kind of where I am with him. But everybody that loved him was, yes, fake news. And then the other side that was, basically manipulated to hate him is like, the news ain't fake, the news ain't fake. And then now
It's
we
reversed.
changed fake news to misinformation, and now misinformation's okay, but fake news, but like what? I just don't, I can't grasp it. But the other thing is, like, I know that I was there once, right? So like I understand that it's possible to be like completely oblivious to your hypocrisy. And I'm not saying I'm not a hypocrite, because I definitely say hypocritical things, but I'm very aware, or I try my best to be aware when it happens, because that's when I have to start thinking about my beliefs. Once I catch that I was being very hypocritical, it's like, okay, is my thought process off here? I didn't go deep enough into this yet.
Well, one of the phrases
Um,
you hear me often say is, I'll tell people, I'll say, look, whenever you hear us, oh, we're unbiased, or we're all biased. The point is, we
mhm.
need to be able to be upfront with our bias, realize what our bias is, and tell people, here's where I'm coming from. Here's my influences, my background. I try to be as balanced as I can. That means I'm biased. It means balanced. I can bring views that I completely disagree with into a discussion and say, I completely disagree with it, but here it is. Unfortunately, we got, like, the whole phrase is history is written by the victors. Well, in this case, the present is written by the victors. Who's ever in charge, whether it's the Republicans or Democrats, conservatives or liberals, they start getting to write the narrative, in this case, the history or the present of how things are. So, that's what we're seeing now. We're seeing, and unfortunately, America, I don't know if we said this show, America has a flaw, because every 4 to 8 years, we can immediately just switch our entire ideology, our entire approach to everybody. It's sort of like having a bipolar girlfriend. You one moment loves you, and the next moment she hates you.
Yep.
That's what America's like. I would be very untrusting of it, because just less than 2 years ago, we had a completely different concept about international interaction and everything else, and now we have a completely different one. So, who do you trust as a foreign nation?
And I think that's like the scariest thing for me. Like, I, like you said before, I heard you say, like, you people that say they're not into politics, are still kind of delusional, because everything is political, which is the truth. Now, it could be something small, but still, when you look at it, the structure of that small thing is still in a hierarchy formation, which is basically what politics
Right. And politics is not
is.
just one party against another. That's what people think. I'm just,
Right.
that's not what it is. It's more than that. Like you just tried to describe right there.
Right. So it's like, to me, digging that deep though, and then you're like, you were delusional. And my comment to you was, how the hell do I get them back?
How do you
And we
get back
talked
to
about this before, because sometimes, man, I like look back and I'm like, it was a lot
easier?
easier, but at the same time, like, I feel like as I keep going, I learn more about myself, and I'm getting more control over this. So like, to me, learning that stuff was able to point out all the evil in me, and then I'm able to fight. Like, I think the only evil that's really worth fighting is the evil that's within yourself. You can't really defeat anything outside of that, unless, like, me talking about this, I feel like maybe somebody, it may trigger something, maybe not now, but like 5 years from now, this may be that something may trigger what they hear here.
Right. Right. They
And
say,
then
hey,
they
there.
start doing the same thing, and then the energy's transferred to a point where everybody's fighting the evil within themselves, right?
Yep.
So
Eddie just left. He doesn't care anymore.
he cares. He's got his son.
I'm joking.
I've meant to tell you that before we started, but he's trying to watch his son at the same time. So I'm engaging him, and you whatever.
No, but that's right. You're exactly right, because obviously each person's at a different stage of whatever their, I don't know if I want to call it progress. I hate the word journey. Who knows what it is? But at any rate, each person's at a different stage. And at some point, somebody say, hey, I was just like that Bill guy 2 years ago, or I'm right there where that Bill guy is now, or, he's further along. Wonder if I can ever get there. It's all that kind of stuff can go on. So,
Yeah, dude, I used to look at like people like the way that I think, and be like, and kind of look at it like, that dude's insane, but then coming, whatever happens, I don't know, man, things happen. And next thing you know, I'm looking back and all of those things are making sense. And honestly, like it all kind of started when my old man passed away or got towards the end of his life is when I started to like, I don't know. It was like, I guess the responsibility kicked in for like the first time, the ultimate
Right,
responsibility.
you're kind of now you're kind of like the patriarch figure. You're the head of your family line, even though you have your mom still. You're kind of
Yeah.
like the representative of your family now, male, being a male. So.
And it's insane. Like I don't know. It just had me, it started to get me to think differently again, right? Like every time and that's why I say I'm the dumbest guy in the room, because I think once I claim to be the smartest guy in the room, that's when I stop gaining information, which stops my progress. So like me sitting here listening to you is just like me downloading something into my computer to make my computer better, faster, stronger. To me, the more information I can gain from people, the better off I'll be later down the line.
Yeah, it's an
Like
excellent approach for everything,
I try, but that's why I really like these terms, because I don't know about you, Ed, but when I sent these to Eddie and Eddie's like, holy shit, I got to do research. And I was like, don't worry about it, brother. That's the love of this, right? Because we would have never heard those words if I never communicated it with you, right? Like they may never have come into my life. So the fact that I got to do that. So what about you, Ed, when you see
like I've been like thinking about like these like terms and like especially like the epistemology is like the like with like the knowledge, like I was thinking about it. I'm like, so for the first to say 18 years of your life, you're kind of programmed because like your parents teach you, then you go to school, school teaches you what they want you to know. And then you don't start to make your own opinions and do your own research and learn your own stuff until you get to a certain point where you start to question things and you get to form your own objective, like, or like Roderick said, like biased opinions on certain things. But it doesn't happen until like later in life, like early in life, like you're told what to think or what to say.
And not to question at all to some
And
degree.
yeah, and not question.
Otherwise,
like,
you're rebellious and disobedient.
My wife's dad, the way like he kind of brought them up was like they had to figure it out on their own. He could help guide you to an answer, but he made you figure it out on your own. Whether you were right or wrong in the end, he just like that was like his parenting style was like he didn't want to tell you how to get the answer or what to do. Like he wanted you to figure it out on your own, whether you succeeded or failed. And then either way, it was a learning experience, whether you succeed or fail. I feel a lot of times for me personally, I learned more from failures than I'd done from success.
Exactly.
I've definitely had a lot more failures than I've had success throughout my life. So it's teaching me to know what works, what doesn't work. Sometimes on one thing, you might have to fail multiple times to finally get to that success.
Right, constant trial and error. I mean, it's anything. I mean, when they built cars, they had trial and error. Okay, well, where are we going to put the spare tire? How's it going to fit here? How the brakes? Okay, now we can't see out the windshield, so we need something to get the water off there. It's constant trial and error and trial until they get it right. So we're still doing that.
Yeah.
So I think it was Descartes, if I say it right. Probably guys know this phrase. I think, therefore I am.
Yes.
I think that was him, and I think he's the one that wrote the Inferno. But that's epistemology. Why are we human beings different than animals? Can they really think the way we do? Can they come up with new ideas? I mean, why hasn't a dog created a doghouse in all the years that they've existed? Is it just because they don't have hands? All these things. So then we start getting into the whole concept of why do human beings think the thoughts they do, and not just, I mean, if you were on an island by yourself, you had no other kind of influence at all. I think it's called the blank slate theory. What would happen? I mean, would you still have a mind?
That is a good point because you have other animals in the animal kingdom, birds, other animals that do build their own houses.
Right.
So like that is a good question of why dogs don't make their own house if these other animals with potentially a lot smaller brains are able to build a house or build or dig a hole to make a burrow. With dogs just
Yeah, or we can go to chimpanzees. I mean, they definitely have the hands. They can do
Yeah.
all kinds of things, and they don't.
like they'll make like a nest. But yeah, you're right. I mean, and like they even use tools.
Right. They
Like,
could
they'll
collect
use
boards. They could
rocks
collect boards
sticks
and
stuff like that. But yeah, they don't really build a house.
I think after you just saying that, Ed, about dogs and then separating them from like other animals, is where do dogs live?
Yeah.
With the humans. The humans are the ones doing that for them. They don't have to do anything. They don't have responsibility to really do anything. So as long as they are controlled or domesticated or taught or educated by the human, they don't have to ever worry about that. God forbid the human race ever went extinct, so would they.
well, they'd revert back to like the wolves, basically.
Do you think they'd go back? Do you think they'd survive? If
I think
we
they
don't,
would a lot, except for maybe the chihuahuas.
A
Now we
lot of-
know. Now we know why the cats don't do it because they're too busy licking themselves all the time.
that's true.
Like I feel like the cats, so like they revert back to that wildness quicker than a dog does.
Right.
Like you could throw a dog and a cat outside at the same exact time and let them go, and I feel like that cat will be better off than that dog would be.
Yeah.
Well,
Cats are solitary hunters, whereas as dogs are pack animals. Without a pack, they really can't survive very well. So
Right. And that's what I'm saying. Like if you think about it from that standpoint, what I hate when I say like they, but like whoever the world government is, right? Whatever that is, however they decided that they wanted to create this order, like they kind of look at humans like a dog in a sense. It's like if we teach them this, they're going to behave that way. We just read the last podcast we did, and since you just said that, it looks like you
Brave New
listened to it,
World.
so I appreciate it. Yeah, Brave New World, and they have what is it, the Blavatsky process. So they what it is in the world state is they're basically mimicking the same identical humans, and they say they can get up to 96 of them. And the one kid says, well, how is that? Why does like identical humans have a benefit for society? And the guy's response was, well, imagine 96 perfect humans working 96 perfect machines, meaning like if you can just keep replicating the same human instead of giving everybody a name and get all of these people to do the same thing, you got a society that is conformed and controlled. And if you look at like, that's what we do to freaking dogs.
Right.
I never thought of that until you just brought it up.
Yeah,
But like,
you remember? You probably heard of Pavlov, the Pavlovian concept. Basically, this is a guy who conditions dogs. Yeah. So when you say the Pavlovian dog, it's somebody who conditions a dog to behave a certain way, and it's a phrase that used about any humans that follow conditions and patterns without question. So,
right, and that's kind of what we do, is it not?
a lot of times.
For like me and my wife were just talking about it, and she like randomly, dude, she was just sitting there. She's like, you know what? After the kids can read and write and they have the basics of math and everything, I think we should homeschool them. And she's like, think about it. Like, what else are they going to learn? After that, what else are they going to learn? They're going to learn, like, what did you learn? And I'm like, well,
Global warming.
Right. That's right. You're going to learn. So doesn't that make you question at all? Like, what did I learn?
Yeah, it does, because a lot of it's indoctrination. So it's not really like Eddie said, you're programmed most part of your life until finally you decide, is this true or not true? And you start thinking about yourself.
Yeah, the epistemology, that's what it's, right? Truth, belief, and justification, right? So I think that what we do when we are looking at ourselves, that we hold a lot of us are holding beliefs as truths and just justifying it
Right.
with our intention because we were told that this is good,
Careful,
right? So
you're gonna get kicked out of your Bible study. You keep going this route. You gotta be careful.
I'm
I know.
they already
I
know,
thought
dude.
about that too, and I've been trying to keep
Because-
my religious aspects of this conversation out of it because
You
there's
can't.
a lot I remember from religion class that they
Right.
would tell you, and
You can't, because
later find
epistemology
out
is
bullshit.
epistemology is a theological hot button word, because epistemology assumes, at least in the Christian sense or any sacred text, that the sacred text is the truth. Everything in that sacred text, whether it be the Quran or the Bible, is the truth. Now, you might be interpreting it wrong according to whoever scholar says, well, you're not understanding what this verse says or this surah in the Quran says, because you're just not enlightened enough or you're not studied enough. So, but it's the truth. It's the epistemology, golden egg there. Whereas we're not talking about that. We're talking about in general human ability and knowledge.
Right, but I do know that that's what they believe because, like I told you before, that I'm in that group, so I'm constantly juggling between two books because I do this and then I do that. Now they do like a chapter at a time, so it is a little bit easier. I can kind of knock that out like that day, but I still have a million other things I'm doing. But we read a book, and then I told them I try my best to always speak my truth, right? Like I'm not here to not hurt your feelings, but I'm not here to hurt your feelings. I'm here to express what I believe in search of truth. And if it upsets you, that's why I want to have this conversation, because maybe I am wrong and you could help me understand the opposite, right? So when I'm in there, I told them straight up, I'm like, the strangest part about this is I am not a Christian. I'm not really a believer in big religions like that, just like political parties and science. And I just think at some point it becomes the thing that you created it to. So I think those things are kind of created to defeat something else, and then you kind of become that. At some point it gets that big that you become what you were trying to defeat, right? So I'm not a big believer in like going into a big religion like that. But the weirdest thing about all of that is a lot of their stuff is very aligned with what I believe, right? Like a lot of it's very parallel, except for I don't think that I think there's an absolute truth, but I don't think we'll really ever know what that absolute truth is. I don't know if we'll know. Does that make sense? Like, do you believe in any absolute truths? Do you hold any absolute truths?
I think Eddie wanted to say something here.
Oh, I was just like thinking it was like, especially with like the religion thing. It's so like, especially when you go to a Catholic school, they tell you certain things. Jesus did this, Jesus did that. And if you question it, their answer is like, he's a son of God, he could perform miracles. That's it. And you got to just take it. And like, you can't you can't question that. And then later on, when you grow up, do your own research, you find out none of those people, I think maybe one, but like 99% of them, nobody wrote, like Mark, Luke, John, they didn't write their books. Somebody else wrote it for them. Like they didn't write those stories and stuff like that. Somebody else later on wrote those stories on behalf of these people from their point of view that they heard. But like that specific person who's supposed to be the book of Luke didn't write it. And when you find that out, you're like, So if this person who supposedly wrote it and was alive when Jesus was alive, then you find out that it wasn't them. The person who actually wrote it wasn't alive at all when Jesus was alive. Then like you start to question everything.
Right.
And then they don't really have an answer.
Well, Ed, do you have any is there anything that you hold as an absolute truth that you like that is the truth? Or you,
besides
Roderick?
like an emotional truth, like the love for my child, right? Like I know for a fact it's like an unconditional love. No matter what this kid does, he might piss me off, but like at the end of the day, I will love this kid for the rest of my life. Like on an emotional level to where like I'll probably never have, I mean, like I might have other kids, but at least right now, I'll never have that emotional connection for someone or something ever again. Like it's just like a different, when you think you're in love or you think you experience love, and like your mom or father or whatever, like like they might tell you like you have no idea how much I love you, and like you don't really understand what they're saying to you until you finally eventually have your own, and you're like, oh shit,
So you don't.
this is what they're talking about.
I guess like I can agree with a point there, but where I go is like, how do you know that that's love? How do you know that that's the best feeling of love? How do you know there's not better? How do you know it doesn't get better or stronger? Like, how do you know that you're at this stroke? Like, that's it. Like, how, like,
I see what you're saying, but it's like
because I strive for more of it.
I
And once I put myself at like I'm there, that means I'm stuck there. So how do I not get achieve more of that? Where would you go with that, Roderick?
Well, we're no problem with this. We're conflating a whole bunch of things together here, which is fine
I always do.
because emotions aren't really necessarily truth. Truth is emotionless.
Correct.
It just is. For example, this one I think we can all agree on. When we beings, humans, animals, whatever, die, our bodies will corrode into the ground, and cease to exist eventually. That's an absolute truth. There's, as far as I know, nobody here can ever.
How do you know that what if we never die? What if just everybody around you dies?
But we know that everybody that we've seen, I guess. So now we have empiricism. Everybody, empiricism is knowledge through observation. That's what it's another word. Empiricism.
Yes.
So everything we've seen, anytime a human being or any kind of creature dies, it eventually ceases to the whole Descartes, I think, therefore I am. It ceases to exist. It can't think anymore. It can't feel. It can't do anything. It corrodes into nothing. That's an absolute truth that we can see, at least. However, we could be in what we call in sort of like a fish bowl where you can't tell what's going on outside your sphere of influence, your sphere of knowledge. That's what we're talking about, epistemology. Can epistemology exist outside your sphere of knowledge? Is there something else that you don't know yet that you need to know? And how do you know that thing? And so when we're talking about absolute truth, I think it's a shaky ground. I mean, we know certain things, but we know Jesus Christ exists because he's lived in my heart and I feel him and blah. You can't know that. That's a feeling,
Correct.
Oh no, he's changed my life and I know he has because I was a sinner and I was a drug addict and blah. Okay. You can hear a whole bunch of stories just like that. I'm not trying to say Jesus isn't true in the Bible, but you can hear a bunch of stories just like that for all kinds of other religions. Because I don't know if it's this show or not, but I've talked about anytime you subscribe to a philosophy that has an order to it, your life will suddenly start seeming more orderly. You could subscribe to all of the most vile philosophy, but if it's orderly, you start having a process to what you do, and you look more orderly to people who didn't know you before. So
I can agree with.
I don't know if I answered the question or not about absolute truth.
No, you did, and I think that's where I wanted to go with the love thing, because that's where my question to Ed was like, how do you know what love is? Because, like, for example, the opposite effect. I watched that documentary on that Sam shared.
Yeah, the
which will be a guest. Yeah, about the Ukrainians and everything, and how they were killing their own people, and like. I had to read it. I couldn't hear. So even when I was just watching it, I had it on like at work. So like I would be calling people, and then when they pick up, I'd kind of let it play. But I was overwhelmed with a feeling of evil. And when I mean that, I mean something eerie, and it's not explainable. Like it's just a feeling. Like I think that's where we also get very conflicted, is we take these feelings as truths, like that. The feeling that you have, Ed, you named it love, right? And love is used so broadly and so much that like when you say that word, other people that hear it have their own feeling of love. Just like you said, when you're like, you can't, when your parents say, you don't understand how much I love you or whatever, it's because you don't know what they are feeling inside, and you really can't. There's really no way of knowing that. So when we toss around the word love and hate and those things, it's like, well, what really are they? Do you get what I'm saying? Like, it's like we just throw it around like I'm for love, for love, for love. It's like, well, how do you know what you're talking about is even the same as the person sitting next to you? You don't know.
In Christianity, for example, a lot of times when people say the word love, what they merely mean is to be nice.
To be nice.
To be nice. Then when you actually look at, I think it's John 4:5, I'm trying to remember the actual verses. Jesus says, if you love me, you'll obey me. So to Jesus, love is obedience. It has nothing to do with feelings. So it's what Jesus says. So this concept of love, and also we have left and right in politics, we're more loving, we're more tolerant. What makes you more loving and more tolerant, whether you're left or right? Well, because I help people at the soup kitchen. Oh, no, because I make sure that somebody has a job. What is love? That's the whole, what's a Beatles song, if we want to call it that. But yeah, what is love? It is a feeling. We know that. And I'm not downplaying Eddie's thing, because I have my own feelings of love. I have a child myself. She's 28 now. Hopefully she's watching, get mad if I have the wrong age. But I think she's 28 now. Just time goes by so quick. But I think you guys know that I'm adopted. So in age 50, I found my birth family, and I found my only biological 100% biological sister, who was also given up for adoption, adopted by another family.
Okay.
And so I can't explain that. That's this amazing kind of love. Like, wow, I'm not alone anymore in the universe. Even though I had my own family, I had my wife and I had my daughter and I had other family members, without knowing who my true heritage was, I just had this loneliness, emptiness, and that wasn't fixed until this situation. So
yeah, that's a good, Ed, yeah, dude. I'm not trying to like downplay what you said, because I think that I have something very similar. Obviously, like, yeah. I know what you mean.
That's right? A great example.
I feel like I know like what you're getting at, but I don't know that it's exactly the same. So like,
no, I see what you're saying. It's like, no, because like I thought I knew it was like with like my parents, you know what I'm
right?
saying? So I thought I knew what it was when I met my wife or married my wife, and then when my child was born, it was just like it clicked to where like I understood like what my mom would say. You know what I'm saying? Like I get it now. Like I didn't before. Like, oh, okay, like you love me, like no matter what I do. Because like I was a fuck up. Like growing up, like I drugs, the whole nine. I fucked up a lot.
You're using past tense?
Yeah.
Okay.
And
maybe
now, and like she's just stuck by my side no matter what I did, whether I stole from her, like always stuck by my side. And it's like, even looking back, I would have been like, fuck this dude. Like time and time again, he let me down. Time and time again, he screwed me over. And she just never left my side. It was like that unconditional love. And never gave up. And I even looking back, I'm like, and then, but like now, like once I have had my own son, it's like, I get it. Like, I just don't, it's like hard to explain.
You can't explain it because it's an emotion. But that's what I'm trying to get at. Like, it's not an absolute truth, because it's not. That's the other thing with words. Like, all of our words are literally just sounds of emotion, kind of. Like, that's all it is. And it was like that's where I like to look at animals. It's like, why can't animals communicate like us or create that kind of order? Because that's what we did. We took sounds, vibration, and we made it into this language so that we can understand people as best as we possibly can. Because if we just kind of walked around like but it's kind of the same thing, right? Like, we would look at somebody. Me and Kristen were actually talking about that before too. Like, could you imagine going somewhere and seeing like that island that has like the people that never been off that island, and watching them like perform a dance, and you'd be like, what the fuck are those people doing? It looks insane. But then like we have dances we slow down. We do these things that just look so normal now because we do it.
Yeah,
But we've,
I can't understand twerking at all. Still, I don't care how much you try to explain it to me.
I mean, dude, if you just get, you just don't watch enough TikTok. If you just keep watching TikTok,
All right.
you might understand.
But no, you're right. So they're communicating in different ways that we don't. Like we just said, well, obviously, originally, there's just a different inflection, just a slight one.
It meant
that
something.
that means something different than the other, and eventually it becomes language. So
That's
just like when you hear other languages.
You watch like Animal Planet or whatever, like a lot of like animals do, like especially like other mammals, dolphins, whales, like they communicate, especially like killer whales, like when they're hunting, or like same with dolphins, like they're communicating, they're working as a team,
right.
and it's pretty amazing to watch.
We have sandhill cranes here in my neighborhood. I don't know if I think I might have sent you a picture of it, Bill. But they just had babies, and they make this click click noise to their babies when it means, hey, don't go any further because they're getting too close to me.
Right.
But then they make different noises when it's okay. But that's the noise they make, I notice, when they don't want their babies to walk closer to me. So they definitely communicate.
Yeah.
And I was watching, I watched a documentary on somebody that like dedicated their life to like dolphins and like preserving dolphins and or whatever. And it may have been a Rogan. I'm not 100%. It was a while ago. I think it may have been a Rogan. And he was like, yeah, man, like they're trying to decipher what they're saying and communicating. The guy's like, we don't want to do that. Like if we start to try to decipher what they're saying, we're just kind of creating something that we don't really know, and we could really damage them by believing that this is what that squeal means and this squeal means. It's like, how would we ever really know that that's it? And we could end up hurting that species by trying to decipher what they're saying or how they're communicating, which goes a long way. But I guess to get back to that, right? So we did the truth, we did the belief, but what about the justification? So when you do something wrong, or when like you said, Ed, you said that your mom, when you would steal from her, you would do these things that were bad. And Roderick, just so you have a little background on us, I'm 5 years sober. I haven't drank in like 5 years. Alcoholic. Eddie's how many years sober?
Us like seven and some change.
He was deeper than me. He liked to put the needles and do that crap. Like, but I was just a drinker. And you can watch we did an episode all kind of on that, got pretty deep. But the way that my mind worked back then was when I would do something wrong like that, I would always be able to justify it because I knew deep down I was a good person. Like I was always convincing myself, I am good. Why did I do that? I'm good. So I'd be able to justify. And then when I would see somebody else doing the same thing, I would give them the opposite judgment. It's like I'm judging their action. I don't know their intention, but I'm like, that person's because he's doing that. But I could do the exact same thing and justify it because I have good intentions. So when I'm on these, I constantly am saying like I like to believe 99% of people on this earth have good intentions.
Yeah.
I assume they have good intentions. However, I know that like if they have not accepted or like admitted to themselves that they're capable of evil, I'm still like, that's the person I fear the most, in my opinion. Like I fear the person that justifies all their stuff because they're a good person.
Like
it's
for
like,
me, like I justified a lot of it because I was like the entire time through like everything, I was able to like hold down a job. Like I kept my job. Like I never called out of work. I always went to work.
You're not that bad yet.
I might have been thrown up out the window on the way to work or whatever, but like I never missed. Like I never called out ever. And like I would just deal with it. And then I would go get high afterwards, or eventually I got high at work. But like I never missed. And like that's how I justified it. Like I'm not that bad. Like I don't have it, like I didn't quit my job, or I didn't, you know what I mean? Like I always justified it as to where like, oh, like I'm still a functioning member of society. I can hold down a job. Barely. Right. Barely. Right. You know what I mean? Like it's like especially when you're that deep into it, your mind, it just completely takes control and just fucks you into believing the biggest bullshit that, like, if you said out loud to anybody, you're fucking crazy.
Yeah, so you're right. I think that, but Roderick, where do you think that you started to? Because I think that we're all born that way. When they say that we're born with original sin, like look at a baby, dude. A baby will come up and they'll hit you. They'll do like whatever,
Right.
like naturally do bad things.
Right. So let me back up.
You recognize that.
Let me back up. So we're talking about justification, and we talked a little bit how you seem to identify with the Bible, even though you don't get into it as a religion.
I love the Bible, dude.
Right. And the reason why is because it has some human philosophy in there that I think is because it's one of the oldest books, and it's gone through examining human behavior longer. Now it gives it different reasons as why the human behavior, but it's probably more so than any religious book that I've ever studied, even though I studied lots of them, that really looks at human behavior. So there's a part in the Bible where the Apostle Paul says, that which I would do, that which I want to do, I know is right and should do, I don't do because I override my own conscience. I'm paraphrasing what he says. I override my own conscience. That's what we're talking right here. We all override our own conscience at some point. We know what we should do and don't do. And then also the Bible talks about what you said, the original sin. People think, well, everyone's basically good. No, the Bible says people are basically bad. And they're not as bad as they could be, but they're basically bad. And we talked about this even from a human perspective. If we weren't basically selfish and greedy to some degree, we would give all our stuff away. We have to be somewhat selfish and greedy and self-centered. If not, then I would give all my food away. I would give my housing away. I wouldn't take care of my family because I want to take care of that person over there. So there's an element of this humanity that we have to be this way. If we're not, but then it gets into the corruption part of where, okay, now I don't want to take care of my family. I do want to take care of my family so much, I'm going to steal from your family, So there's where the evil part comes in. So we justify these things. We justify, well, I kept down a job, or I have to steal because my family's hungry, or I have to kill because if I don't kill, I'm going to be killed. Things like that. It's going to happen that way. I mean, we're bringing it around a little bit to what's happening now. The soldiers that are invading Ukraine, the Russian soldiers. I have to go because if I don't, my government will do X to me. Or the other way around, the Ukrainians, if I don't do it, this will happen to me. So we always have to justify these things. And then we have to base it on the knowledge that we have at the time. And
yeah,
so,
man. I love the way you just explained it. Like I can agree with that. And do you think that like when people are doing that, just because they're justifying it, do you still like, I don't think that they think that it was evil because of the justification.
they might later on.
Sense?
They might later on, but at the moment they're doing it, again, like Paul says, I overrode my conscience. That which I know is wrong, I do anyhow, because he says I'm in the flesh. I can't think outside my immediate situation, and so we do that as human beings. And then sometimes we go back and go, oh, I know that's wrong, and maybe we never even tell anybody else. We know within ourselves it was wrong, but we did it anyhow. Sometimes we don't. Yeah, sometimes we delude ourselves into thinking that it was right and we were right to do it. Like revenge often is a wrong thing because eventually it never ends. It goes back and forth until you annihilate one or the other. So,
like me and Bill had the conversation. I think it was on our last podcast. It was about like being a soldier, like especially like a lot of like countries, like you don't really have a choice once you turn 18. Like you have to join. Like my wife's Greek, so like they're like as soon as you turn 18, like you have to join. You have to do like 18 months or whatever, and according to if you want to live there.
Right.
There is leeways with like if you're going to school and stuff like that, but like once you're there, at some point you have to do it. And here, like it's voluntarily, and you're told to do something. Like you need to go in here. This person's a bad guy. Go in there, wipe them out. Anyone else in the house, wipe them out. And they do it because it's what they're told to do, even though they know it's wrong to kill these people. They do it because they're told to, and it's a job. Right. This is what I'm getting paid to do. But then like later on, like that's where I think like the PTSD comes into play. It's like their conscience is getting at them because they knew, even though it was a job, they're just doing what I'm told to do. But like now, like there's some, like their conscience is like, you were wrong. You shouldn't have gone in there. You shouldn't have killed that person and whoever else was in the house, whether it was women, children, you know what I mean? A lot of times they just wipe out everybody.
Right.
You don't hear about that part. You just hear about, oh, we took out the bad guy. You
Well,
don't hear about we wiped out his whole family.
Even less, I mean, obviously that's morally questionable. We get that. But even less things. Let's say you're in the military and you're told to go storm the beaches of Normandy, for example.
Right.
Okay, so you're not going to kill anybody, but they told you the military commanders that's sending you, and that they know that's a no-win situation, because you know what they're doing the whole time you're storming the beach? They're going around the back to get those Germans. They knew they were sending all those men to their death. And so if you're in the military and you say, I know my commanders get ready to send me, do you have the right to say, I'm not doing it? And if you try to make me do it, I'm going to shoot you. You would not have the right to do that. You'd be killed or, imprisoned if you disobeyed that order.
Marshal.
Right. Even though you're not killing anybody else, you're just trying to preserve your own life.
Right.
So.
And I think that's on and the reason I like to look at those scenarios, because they are to like an extreme. And I think things are best understood at an extreme.
Right.
And then you have to break it down to a individual level to see how you are kind of doing the same thing. Right. So like by doing that to somebody, it was almost like, how do we get these people to believe in this so much that they're not going to question it. They're not going to question it. Like
for
that's
God
just not
and
going to happen.
country. For God and country.
That's the whole process through boot camp, is to
Not even boot camp, man. It starts as a kid, young as a
so
child.
like the military aspect, like it starts like with boot camp. Like we're gonna break you down, brainwash you, and then build you up the way we want you to be.
And it's necessary. I get it. I just never could do it. I wouldn't.
It's a necessary evil.
Right.
I love that term, because hearing that term has helped me understand things more, because I think until I had that term, I was so confused and had this huge conflict of like, what do I need to do? Like, because I don't want to be evil, right? I know I have it in me. I know I've been it, but I'm like, all right, I'm actually fully capable of the most gruesome evil that there is. Like I'll do it, right? I'll do it. However, now I know I can do it. So the fact that I just know that I can do it, there's kind of parameters as to what's going to get me to do that. I'm not going to allow something that's outside of, I guess, like my family, friend, like to get me to ever do things outside of that. Like I can't, it's hard to explain, but that's why I like the Trump thing, right? That could easily turn into, you don't know. We don't know. You don't know. No one knows. That could easily turn extremely evil, and you would be part of it. The other side could do the same thing, and you would be easily a part of it. Like, and they don't think they are. Like, they don't think that they're capable of that. But at the same time, they're sitting there calling the other side evil all the time. Now, I think the other thing that when it comes to that group ideology, and that's like kind of group ideology is kind of the opposite of this, right? Like group ideology is somebody that I feel like it's, and I don't know at what level like the person doing those things is conscious of it. Like I'm always kind of battling with that. Like I kind of feel like I know when somebody's more conscious than somebody else in a group. Like for example, the school board that my son used to be on. Like I know the person that's on that school board that is conscious and aware of his control of the rest of them. Like I know which one it is. The other ones are way too emotional to know what they're actually doing.
I call them the reluctant leaders. You can tell them they don't really want that position, but they take it because they have to step up to the plate for what reason.
Yeah, and a lot of them want the recognition. They want that, like,
right. That's not
they don't have purpose.
Right? That's not the reluctantly. I'm talking about the person who doesn't really. I don't really want this job, but I know I have to do it to help out whoever. But then you see the people like, I'm going to tell you what to do, and you're going to listen to me, and I'm going to authority. That's the people that's different.
Yes.
So yeah.
Yes. Yeah. But I guess to just go back, is there anything in your life, Roderick, that you think transitioned you from that original conditioning that we all kind of get. I've never really met somebody that hasn't gone, because I try to, when I talk to people, understand how they got there. And when I talk to somebody that that has a very similar perspective of life, they typically have went through a lot of, or something happened in their life that was tragic, or like something they had to really deal with and accept before they got there. So is there anything that you think that happened to, or is this something that you just always were and I'm catching up?
Good question. Here's the difference. I think it was you. I've been talking to so many people lately, but I think it was you. And I talked about the fact that I was adopted. Adoptees don't feel like they belong. Almost feel like extraterrestrials from another planet. We're observers, all you human beings doing your behavior, and I see you with your happy families, and you can talk about my great granddad, my great great great, all this stuff, this lineage that you have. We have no beginning. We have no connection. We are no one to some degree. I don't care if you're adopted and your family's nice and happy to you. That's not the point. The point is you don't really feel like you exist. So most of my life has given me this different perspective where I'm looking from the outside in. And so I can't name a specific point. I do know there was a transition, not necessarily what you're looking for, but a transition when I did finally find my biological family. And now I understand my roots. I've even traced it back to the 680 AD. But this is the reason why is I've always kind of been an outsider, never really seen myself plugged in the same way other people are. Doesn't make me better, just make me different.
No, it doesn't make you better or worse, right?
Right,
It makes you
right.
you.
Right.
That's what makes you you.
Right.
And that's kind of the goal of this podcast for me, is to get people to see that they are them and not that human dimension that they're currently claiming to be.
And so you're experiencing it now, I think, to some degree, but in a later fashion, because when you lost your dad, and I think we talked about when you finally
we did.
When you lose your mom, you're basically kind of alone. I don't care whether you're married and have kids. Now you're your own person. You're not the son of anyone. You are your own person now, and you have to make your way in the world and represent.
Got the chills, dude.
Yeah, represent yourself in the world and represent your family in the world. You are the beginning of your line. You are the Adam in your family. So, and that you'll definitely feel it then. But I felt it from the get-go because I never had that.
That's a good point.
I'm glad you said that, because I know there's got to be plenty of people out there that can relate to Roderick, that are adopted or in foster care and never knew their parents. And there's tons of people that are like that, and like he said, they feel alone, but they're not alone. There are people that that are in the same situation or have gone through that situation.
But how many deal with it the way you dealt with it?
No,
I think you're on a micro level. I think you're at the very small percentage of that.
Mm-hmm.
Just a little bit of.
They do all that stuff. I mean, there's ways to deal with that, different ways. I mean, I could have become an alcoholic or a drunk or a drug addict or whatever it could have been, just to deal with it. And
it's the easier way, right?
Right. Or constantly blame it on somebody else or go into therapy and all that stuff. But I tried not to. I tried to instead do just the opposite. I tried to make a very stable, orderly life.
I guess do you think, I don't know where you grew up or anything, but were those things near you?
Yeah, I was in
Did you have more access to that? Was the access there?
Both my adoptive parents were alcoholics.
Okay.
But maybe that's one reason I chose that, because I saw that caused them not to clearly think and make the poor decisions. So I purposely moved away from that. For the longest time, I was a teetotaler. I didn't drink any alcohol at all. Not because I thought it was a sin or evil. I was afraid I would become that person I saw. So I didn't do it.
It is a scary thing. Like, looking back, man, we started drinking. I think I took my first Percocet at 12 years old.
Yeah.
Like, it was there, dude. And like, thinking back to that stuff, like, I remember going to school and being like, I'll never do that stuff. That stuff is scary. And then like to immediately doing it almost, because it was my community. Like, that's what everybody was doing. And I just ended up doing it because I wanted to be somebody. I didn't want to be nobody.
And then you justify it. At least I'm not shooting up, or at least I'm not doing these. That's when
That's why I think,
Dude,
the DARE program was such a failure. because like they dumped millions of dollars into this program and it didn't help.
That was the hardest part for me to get sober, dude, from because I did just drink. Now I would do some, uppers at late night, but I was never addicted to like cocaine or anything, but it would be like late night and need to stay up, but I was never addicted to that. So my issue was always like me and Eddie grew up together. So I watched him progress to where Eddie was, and could always look and be like, well, I'm not doing that.
Yep. There's a justification.
Like I'm not that bad. I can't. And then you go to AA for the first time and you're the only 25-year-old drinker in there or 21-year-old drinker in there. No one else is just drinking. So I was like, all right, I'm just going to stay here for a little bit, learn how to drink. Lasted another 6 months. And then, all right, obviously you can't just learn to drink. I got to figure it out. Right. And that's where I found the higher power. And that's where my journey started. But with my father passing, you're right, man, that was it. And I just want to bring it back to the adopted thing, man, because I think this was a new perspective for me. It was brought up to me before from a girl I used to work with. But this one really, once I heard this, and this is why I always say something that you hear now may not make sense until really later. I met a client. I went to her house. It was her and her brother, and they were very light skinned, but I could tell that they were black. And we sat there and we talked, dude, for like 2 hours. Her brother and her just shared their family history with me. And the land that they were given was part of the 40 acres and a mule. And because they're great, the brothers, and they were a very older brother and sister, maybe 70s ish. His great grandfather was a white man that married a slave, and he was disowned by like the entire family at that time. Like, no, you're not marrying a slave. You can't do that. And in South Carolina, you weren't allowed to marry a slave, or white person couldn't marry a black person back then. So they had to drive down up to Philly to get married. And then they came back, obviously, and he was kind of disowned. But like when he was saying that people in the area still remember him, like from stories, and they mentioned to me, they're like, well, like, we don't know that side of the family at all. Like we don't know like our heritage, and that hurts. Like we don't know who we are. And it made me like look at the whole being black people are oppressed vision a little differently, just from the aspect of like, it's like it's being used against them, right? Like it's like people know that hurts. Like there's like, when you go into psychology and stuff, you can see that thing can like damage somebody. It's almost to a point where like that's what they're trying to use to control people. And it was just so sad to hear, man, because I could see like the pain in their eyes. They were an older couple, and they obviously have a very a different perspective when something like that happens. But do you think, like, when you talk about being adopted, but like a lot of black people that have been here since, like, that have slaves as ancestors, like they can't trace it back very far.
Yeah, that's some of this. And I wrote that other book called The History and Future of Black People. I wrote it, called that title on purpose, but I addressed that in the book. Because not only that, we sometimes you hear people, white, black, whatever, why don't black people just, do this X, Y, Z? That was a long time ago. No, it was less than 150 years ago that a lot of black people were told, okay, you're free now. We have no plan for you. You're free. And
good luck.
Yeah, good luck. There was no plan to reintegrate them into society, to figure. And so they could hear it. And again, you don't have a history. They don't know a lot of times they don't even know what region of Africa they came from, let alone your family. So they don't know, hey, am I from Senegal or wherever? They don't know any of that stuff. So, and there's, that's kind of the same concept. I think in a way, adoptee is even worse, because at least as a black person, that your heritage is African. That you usually can go back 2 or 3 generations. You're probably have something to do with some of the slavery or such as I don't know. Like, look at my lips, for example. One of the first things I thought when I was trying to figure out, like, do I have black people in me? I finally took a DNA test, and I don't. I have Viking because the Vikings also have thick lips, which is fine. I didn't carry the way, but I didn't even know
Maybe
my
we're related, dude. Maybe we're
Uh,
related now because my father-in-law had Viking in him.
Yeah, so you have these big lips, and so anyhow, I didn't have any kind of heritage at all. I had to make it up and assume it in my head and make it up, and it was just awful. So I think in a way, sometimes adopted people are worse off than black people because black people do have at least a couple generations they can go back to. So
I think it's equal. I do. I mean, here's the thing, right? You have your worst. I have my worst.
mhm.
It's still the freaking worst. No
Sort
matter
of.
what the thing is,
Right.
like I can't say that this is worse than your worst. I don't know. I
Oh, I'm
just
not
know
talking.
that
Yeah, I'm not talking on an emotional level. I get that. On an emotional level, it could be
from a
equal.
psychology
Right.
standpoint, you're
Right. I'm
saying.
just talking about a psychology standpoint that a person, no matter what color they are, who's adopted, may not know their heritage at all. They actually have to assume it. Now,
Now, I guess where I see a positive in being just adopted and white would be the fact that there's nobody going out there saying, all you adopted whites are being oppressed by these groups. We need to go get them.
right.
Does that make sense? So like
Right.
it's easier from a psychology standpoint to because it'd be so hard to do that. It'd be like,
Yeah.
well, where are those people at? I can't see them. I don't know what they look like. So how do I actually get them to attach themselves to that dimension of their being? Right. That's how I look at all these things. It's like somebody's trying to get you to attach yourself to a specific human dimension
Mhm.
and then use that dimension to
Against
carry for their agenda.
right.
And then we're just marching along. And on top of that, you have the other side that is needed in order for this side to work to begin with. Because if there's no threat or evil against this, then this doesn't work. So like when I look and I love Malcolm X, I named my son after my youngest son after Malcolm X because of everything I've read about him. Maybe I'll be wrong one day. I don't know. But I love there's a story I don't know where the book is. I just read, I think it's in chapter like 13, where he tells this whole story about how Elijah Muhammad set him up with the KKK for a meeting, and they had a meeting on how they were going to control each other's groups. So like they would literally, Elijah Muhammad was literally meeting with the KKK the whole time, saying, "Hey, I need you to come over here and lynch this black guy at this time because we're going to be here, and then we'll go in and get this white guy. But after it's all said and done, I'm going to come in and save them. So I'm going to come in and say, we need to get the KKK, and KKK is going to all the white people and saying, we need to do this for them so that we can control their own people,
So
not realizing that their leaders were eating dinner together.
we're still doing that in politics. That's the reason why you have this group. Oh, this group ABC and LGBTQ, whatever it is, whatever group it is, you see politicians talk about if we need to help you so you can get your rights and so you can be justified no matter what group it is. That's what they like doing. And I think also that's the reason why there's this push towards democracy, because as you know, America's a republic and it's much different than a
A
democracy.
democratic republic.
Yeah, it's not even a democratic republic. It is a republic because
For which it stands.
yeah, because it's different. Because so democracy is the politician's dream because they can manipulate the masses, whereas a republic, it's based on preset, codified rights that individuals can appeal to, despite what the politician says or despite what the mob says. So therefore, a politician wants this to be a democracy, so he can say, "Hey, Group A, Group B, Group C, let's pit you all against each other until I get, as a politician, what I want." I despise a democracy just like the founders despise democracies.
Really?
Yep.
I was always under the impression that we were a democratic republic because we have the states within the federal level, and the federal level was really only there to make sure that the states were following
Nope. We're a constitutional
Really?
republic. We're a constitutional republic. Another show
but
for
that's
another
where I
time.
thought the feds were supposed to, right? We could talk about that that's a whole nother book, because
Right.
but that's new to me, dude. You got me now going to be looking something else up. That'll be something my wife my wife in politics, or she's so smart when it comes to that stuff. So I guess so with the epistemology, then you have the existentialism, which is the investigation of what distinguishes the justified belief, right, from opinion. So is the existentialism the kind of the what are you doing, or how are you going about figuring out your truth, belief, and justification? Like, what is that exactly? Like, what's the difference? They sound so, like, they kind of sound the same to me. I guess the way I'm looking at existentialism is like, what I wrote down is like that we're all basically individuals that have control over our freedom, basically. Like, that's individuality, consciousness, freedom, and responsibility. That's the words that I gathered from looking it up, quickly.
Let me let Ed say something. I think he wants to. We've been talking for a long time. Then I'll get in there.
I mean, with the existentialism, it's like so I was like actually just like looking at the definition, and then like the four major themes of existentialism, which is like individual, God, being, and truth, and like how this and the other word, what was it? Epistemology, how like they tie in together. They're their own individuals, but you can also like they go together at the same time, which is really like really interesting. Is like how we got, like we were talking about God, and like how earlier we were talking about like what your truth is, or like your and like what you're here for. Like why are we here?
Your purpose.
Wait, what is your purpose? What is your being? And it's like it's really in depth. Like you really have to look at yourself, and you do a deep dive into why we're here, why you're here, why I'm here, and like if we only have one life, what am I doing with it? Because it's not that long, 80 years, 90 years, if you're lucky, 100 and something, 100 and change, but not anymore.
So why are you
Like,
here, Ed?
what are you going to do in that short amount of time?
Why are you here, Ed? What's your, have you
got
that deep?
I'm still trying to figure it out. I don't really know. I have a basis, but like, and like now, like, and like that, it's complete. It changes. It evolves. I feel like it's a fluid statement, because like before, I was here to play hockey. Like that was my calling. And then I got lost for X amount of years when I was into drugs and alcohol, and then I found myself in the spiritual aspect. Like I've always been forced into a religion because I went to like grade school, high school. It was a Catholic school, and then I finally had, like, as I got older, I had my own beliefs and thoughts on things, and I thought a lot of it, what they were saying or what they were doing, was bullshit. And I consider myself spiritual. I do pray. I do call my higher power God. I do have a belief or a faith in something. I just don't conform it into one religion. There's different religions where like I take certain things and kind of make it into my own. Like there's certain like little aspects of Hinduism and Muslim and Judaism and like Catholicism, and like I kind of just take what I want and I just make my own thing, and I just kind of do my own thing. And
it's a journey.
It's a journey. And like now, like I feel like my purpose is to now raise my child and to be the best person he can be, and teach him right from wrong from my point of view, but also let him figure it out on his own. Because like I said, like earlier, like my wife's father, like, was it wrong? But like he created there's three of them. It's her, my wife, her sister, and her brother, and like they're very intelligent, self-taught individuals, and like all three of them are extremely intelligent people, and you can sit down and talk to them pretty much about anything, and like it's like Bill loves talking to my wife. He really enjoys talking to her because she might agree with certain things. Like she might agree with a certain topic that you're on, but at the same time, she loves playing devil's advocate. Well, what if? Like always making you see things from a different point of view. And even if she doesn't believe that point of view, or that's not her belief, like she still will bring it up and make you see the other side. And it's just like, it's one of those things like, I feel like the individual and the being part of it is kind of like the same thing. Like what you're like, my purpose here now is just like trying to figure out what I want to do in my life, but at the same time, putting in the groundwork, I guess,
Effort.
for my child.
Effort. I think that you're. I would like to hear what Roderick. I mean, I think that the things that you that I see you doing online. I've never met you in person, but I get nothing but good vibes through whatever Wi-Fi connection you're coming through right now. But you do seem like somebody that understands themselves, that you have a good grasp of just humans in general, which allows you to kind of know who you are. You've written a lot of books. I've only read 1.5 of one, but just looking at the titles of a lot of the books, it tells me that you are well versed in many different things. For an author, it takes a lot of thought. It takes a lot of education. When I started this podcast, my first thing I wanted to actually do was to sit down and write a book about my life. And I couldn't even get a word on the paper, dude. Like I'd never be able to do it because I can't. So I was like, you know what's like, I can't write a book. That's not who I am. I'm going to start this podcast and I'm going to talk about me. I'm going to talk about my past. And I talked with a buddy and he's like, dude, no one's going to listen to that. And I'm like, I don't care what people want to listen to. I just want to do it for me. I want to be courageous by sharing my truth. That's what I want. And then I changed that up. And I'm like, you know what? Why not get other people's truth? And then through that journey, I will be able to share my truth over a longer period of time and uncover more truths that I didn't know really existed and be courageous to say it on the internet that it will go anywhere forever, right? So with that being said, Roderick, what is your purpose? Do you think you know your purpose? And what is the meaning to life in general?
So we throw these two words together, epistemology, which I think we've done a very well job of defining that. Basically, it's the how do we know what we know, and I'm trying to get at knowledge. Existentialism is a little different because we talked about what is our purpose, but it's even going more to that. Why do we even exist? And can you prove you exist? Can you prove you exist? That's the word. I think, therefore I am. He proved he existed because he can think. His mind, well, what if he's just thinking he exists and he doesn't really exist? It sounds crazy, but it's true. What if you don't really
like that? Was that box? What was that? The cat in the box? Who did, you know what I'm saying? Is the cat dead or alive until you open the box?
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Schroeder's cat.
Schroeder's, yes. Kind of the same concept.
Yeah. So it's not just because, and I'm not downplaying anybody's because we always talk about this. Well, the reason somebody will say, the reason I exist, and I'll say, be careful, Eddie, I'm not saying this because we all, but the reason I exist is because I want to pass on my ideas and morals or whatever it is to my child. So think about that for a moment. Stop and think about it. We're talking about earlier, we're talking about pushing things to the extreme. One of my thoughts is to prove a premise, whatever that premise might be, you need to push it to an extreme, put it in situations where maybe I never thought that premise should go there. You put it there, and if it doesn't survive, you know that premise has got a flaw. So here's the problem with the premise that we exist to pass on or whatever, no matter. there's been millions of people before you. Your dad before you, your dad before your dad. Who cares? What if we are just hairless apes and all we do is biodegrade and nothing happens to us? Who cares what our morals are? Who cares what we pass on, our ideas, our stories? Nothing. That wouldn't, who cares about that? So existentialism, I can't even say it now. I'm the one that brought it up.
Existentialism.
There we go. I can't even say it because they got these big lips. So it doesn't just ask the question of what is our purpose, but it says, do we even exist in the grand scheme of things? And does it matter that we exist? Does it matter that we pass all this stuff on? Who cares? And so now we get to the question of, why do I exist? Not my purpose, but does it even matter? I mean, 10 years from now, or 30 years from now, 200 years from now, who's going to know who Eddie Carroll is? Who's going to know who Roderick Edwards? What? Why? I mean, we can leave our mark on the world, but what does that matter? I mean, everybody knows who Adolf Hitler is, right? Maybe he existed more than Bill existed, because Bill's name's not going to be known as well as Adolf Hitler. So
hey, you don't know that yet. You don't.
we don't know that. We don't know that yet. But my name won't be.
I hope I'm not Adolf Hitler, but you never know.
But if the point is to be remembered and to exist, to be known, because that's what exist is, to be. That's what it means. Exist means to be. Even evil people are existing, probably more so than some of us.
I mean, like you're definitely not wrong. Like if you think about it, especially like before ancestry.com and stuff like that, to where you can actually like go back. Most people only hear stories or whatever 2, 3, maybe 4 generations back.
Roast.
Right?
You know what I mean? Because like 4 generations back, you don't really hear beyond that.
Right.
So
you don't hear stories. You don't hear what happened. Like even like, because I guess it gets to a point where like that 4 generations back, so your great grandmother or grandfather, if they're alive, they don't really remember much. Or if they tell you stories, it's distorted. It's kind of
mythical almost.
Yeah,
it's their recollection.
But like you don't hear, because like if things got passed down, like how before, like everything got passed down generation to generation to generation, I should know things from how the pyramids were born. You know what I'm saying?
No, we start over every generation.
And I'll tell you I'll tell you my thought on that. One, I think that you're right in the aspect of, and I wasn't looking at existentialism as saying, do we exist? And then why do we exist? I wasn't looking at it that deep yet. But I like that question because I was definitely there. And that's where I felt, that's kind of how it felt when my dad died. It was almost like, nothing mattered.
Yeah,
nothing mattered. It was like, why am I here? Like he existed yesterday. He's just not here. Why was he here? Like, you know what I mean? It was like, why am I here? What am I to do here? Why go on? Why do these things? And so with that being said, and then you bring up the fact of like, why does it matter about your ancestors and stuff? I think it does. I think that plays a big part in all of us. You said earlier that affected you as an adopted child. You didn't even know your parents, but you did. You just didn't know, but they're you. They created you. And I think as children, the biggest, and that's why like me and my mom never got along until I was older and started to look at myself for what I was. I always hated my mom. Like we would fight. I shouldn't say hate because I didn't like hate her, but like we were always butting heads. And then I am my mom. I was looking at myself in the mirror. I never liked myself. So until I was able to accept me for me, I wasn't able to accept my mom because my parents were me. They were me. I'm an extension of them. So me rebelling against them was really me fighting myself. So I think when you're saying that things aren't passed down, I think they are passed down, but they're not passed down through words. They're passed down from a whole nother level that we don't understand.
Exactly.
They're passed down from the things that we do. That's why in the Bible, they talk about it. They talk about, that you're born, like you get your sins from your your parents, right? Your dad or whatever, the firstborn gets the sins or whatever.
But it says both, actually. It says that it's sort of like your name. If your family has a bad name of something, you'll say your dad was a cutthroat. Even though you may not be a cutthroat, you're labeled with his name. So there's that. And then there's also, especially as an adoptee, there's certain traits that now that I know my biological sister, we have a lot of the same traits, not just physical features, but the way we think, the things approach. We weren't anywhere near each other. We weren't raised by the same people, but you could tell that we're definitely related because we have the same attributes in that regard.
Correct. So doesn't that kind of show like there's so much more to what that we understand, like that really probably can't be fully explained with words. And then we're trying to do, and even with this podcast, it's like I'm trying to share these knowledge in words, but I can't. And that's why I think it's hard for people to start accepting things. It's like, it's not really explainable. I don't know. Like you met your sister how many years later, and you probably have the same little tweet thing that you do. And it's like, how's that freaking possible? Your parents didn't show you that. You didn't see her doing that, but you're doing it at the same rate she is. And it's like, because that's part of you.
It's hard coded in my DNA. Yep.
It's coded in there. So it's like, when you say that you're there to like raise your son, it's like, yeah, we are. But guess what? If you don't do you, it's not really, you're not allowing your generations to continue to move up if you're just giving words. Right. I think it needs action. It needs, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It's hard to explain, but I do think that stuff that we do, I think that we can communicate at a whole nother level than we really understand. Like, I just think, I don't know. So when I think of my purpose is to change and progress every day, be better than I was yesterday, not just physically, but mostly mentally, be somewhere different here. Right. Like I think as long as I continue to do that, I'm going on the right path until my day comes. But I'm here now, and this is all I got. And right now, this is it. So what am I doing with it? And this is what I choose to do.
You're thinking, therefore I am. That's what you're doing. Every day you're thinking, therefore I am. That's what makes you exist. I get that we take care of our family and feel like it's our purpose. But before you even get to that, you have to be a thinking being. Otherwise, you're what we talked about earlier. You're just a programmed robot, carrying out. Well, we have all centuries of robots that took care of their kids and took care of their kids and took care of their kids. But before all that, and you don't have to become as famous or infamous as Adolf Hitler or whoever, or JFK, if you want to become that, you have to exist in your own realm, or what you want to call it. You have to think, therefore I am. I exist. And I know
for you.
Right. And there's the confidence. You think you feel in me, Bill, you can have that too, because the fact that once you realize I exist in this moment in time, that's who I am.
Yes.
Still, so.
Yeah, correct. And I think once you can grasp, if that can come across that way, a lot of the other things just kind of go. And that's the thing that makes me so, that's what I'm really compassionate about. And that's why I think the truth hurts, because I'm very outspoken against all group ideology. And it comes out as that I don't like what they're doing or something, but that's not it. I'm not even against the people in the group. I'm against the person holding you back, telling you you're in this group.
It dilutes the fact that you exist, because
man,
you're just wallpaper now.
Yeah, and that's all you are. Like, you're only that thing. You're not you. You're not letting. That's why I don't understand the whole gender thing or none of that, because it's like, you want to be what you want to be, then just why call you they? Why not call you Roderick?
Mm-hmm.
Like, why can't I call? What's wrong with a name? Where did
that
go?
That's more me than anything else. It's sort of like the guy who works.
Yes, you want to be authentic. Yeah. Be you. Change your name. Go ahead, but give yourself a name, not a they.
Right.
Like, that to me is the most obvious way to get people to not be themselves.
Yeah.
Like, no, you're no longer a singular pronoun. You are now plural. Go be they.
You definitely don't exist then, not as an individual.
Right. And is that a bad thing? I don't know, because that's where I get stuck. do I want you to think this way?
Well,
I don't know. I
without
don't know.
without people being an individual, I mean, we don't remember groups so much. We don't remember any unit within the group. That would be like me saying the Russians. Okay, right now there are a lot of unique Russians who are doing unique things that I don't know anything about them. You know, but when I say the Russians and just dismiss the whole thing, that's how we're doing that when we say they, or we don't.
They or this group or that group, your human dimension.
Right.
So I know that you had a little thing come up on your calendar here, mate. So I want to let you get to your roast there. What do you have any? I need to get that on my TV, dude. I might be a little bit more on time with things. But do you have any? I'll start with you, Ed. But do you have any final thoughts on these two things? I really enjoyed this conversation, by the way.
Final thought. So like just to tie in real quick with how you were saying, like with growth, with like knowledge, like growing mentally. I remember years ago, I forget what the documentary was, but dude was in jail. He was in prison doing life. And he said pretty much like in a nutshell was like, they can lock me up in here, but they can't lock me up in here. I read every day. I read a book every single day. I'm constantly learning, constantly reading. So in here, he's free because he's able to continuously grow and learn. That he might be locked up in these walls, but he'll never be locked up in his mind. And I just like thought that was like coming from someone like, I forget what grade he stopped going to school, but like coming from somebody that was at the time like 8th grade education or whatever it was, to the person he was then, even though he's doing life, to be able to have that forethought and that knowledge and like that aspect or viewpoint on life. I just thought it was amazing. And then how, like you said, like I'm continuously trying to grow day by day. It's like today or like tomorrow, I want to be smarter than I am today. And like, I just like, that's what it made me think of that. And so that's kind of where my thought is right now.
What about you, Roderick?
Yeah, I'd love to follow up what Ed said, because that's great. And it's not so much, I know they didn't mean it this way. It's not so much about what we know, like knowledge, like, oh, now I learned how to be a carpenter or whatever. It's the fact, if you want to continue to exist, you have to keep thinking, especially independent thoughts about anything, be thinking. Once you stop thinking, I don't give a care anymore, I'm just going to go with whatever process I have to do. If I'm in prison, I'm going to get up and go and take my tray and go to the yard and come back. And that routine happens for 50 years. Or if you're in a marriage, I'm just going to go to work every day. I come home, I kiss my wife and pat my kids on the head. And that repeats itself over and over. You don't really exist that way. You have to keep thinking. It's not about knowledge necessarily, but it's thinking, being able to think about things and have views on things, not opinions, but views, because you can think about them. I exist, therefore I am, because I think, therefore I am. There we go. So that's what I kind of want to leave, that those epistemology is not just about knowledge and getting to think better things. It's just thinking in general.
Yeah, man. I really enjoyed this conversation. I think I spoke a little more than I would have liked to speak. I'd rather have had you guys talk a little bit more.
That's great.
But when I get into my thoughts, dude, they just run. But that's why another reason I did this podcast was because I wanted to get better, be a better listener, and be able to take more in than I'm giving out. Because when I talk, I'm really only giving what I already know. I'm not gaining anything new. However, I've seen the growth in my podcast since the beginning. And I feel like what I've been doing is putting new thoughts together in real time and then doing it out loud, like, rather than, but that's because a lot of the things I said today are things I've never thought before. So just throwing that out there. And I also think that everything we talked about today, when I look back at myself, I think that if you are listening to this and you feel that you are in some way being held back, ask yourself if what you did today is the same exact thing you did yesterday and the same exact thing you did 6 months ago, a year ago. And if it is this exact same thing, it's because you're doing the wrong things. Do something different. do one thing different. Try to get your day in order just a little bit better. For me, man, it started with literally making my bed. I used to wake up and be like, why do people make their bed? What's the point of that? I just go get back in it later. But like for me, man, that was the start of putting my day in order. I knew every day I wake up, me and my wife basically get up almost at the same time. She gets up, she gets Liam to get him dressed. I make the bed. I accomplished something that day, no matter what. I accomplished something. And then from there, I know that I kind of lost control, right? Like my day's not going to be able, I had control for a second of the morning. Now it's kind of, who knows where it's going to go. But at least I know I did that. I did accomplish something. And now dude, just this last year, I've been getting so much clarity. Instead of confidence, it's more of a clarity thing that I don't know. It's hard to explain, but again, if you're listening and just any advice to make yourself a little better is look at yourself and ask, where was I a year ago and where am I today? And did I wake up and do the same thing I did this day last year? And if it is, do something different. Unless you like it. If you're unhappy and that's the case, the scenario, and do something different. Just try something different. Try something that you're afraid of and go face it. Right? Do you guys kind of agree with it?
Constantly be thinking, be changing, being something, constantly be existing. Again, there's existing and living, two different. They could have got into living. Living is different than existing. What is living compared to existing? But yeah, exactly.
I agree, brother. I tell my mom that all the time because she's going through her, her all them chemo and new stuff because it's metastasized and all that stuff. I said, Mom, you're here right now, right? Do you right now.
Right.
Stop worrying about that stuff later. Just do you right now. That's all you got.
Exactly.
Is right now. That's all I got. I don't have none of those problems, but this is all I got. I could click this end button and you guys might never hear from me again. A car could come through my it's the truth though.
Yeah, it is.
So people stop living in fear and, face that fear.
Exist,
baby. Exist. But Roderick, man, I really appreciate you. And I'd love to have you on, whenever, dude. So whenever you want to come on, brother. I know I like to talk and go long. So
no worries.
But, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got something. I hope everybody had some value here. If anybody else is again listening, I don't need to shout out or put Roderick's stuff up there. He did it for me. So thank you for that. You saved me some time and effort. I highly recommend his books. I have not read all of them, but I guarantee I guarantee that they'll be worth reading. I read some of the Universe and very, 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 very good book, man. Very good book.
Appreciate it.
So I'll let you know as soon as I get finished the whole thing, but I can tell you're on a path that I like.
All
so
right. Perfect.
Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Please like, subscribe, share this video. And Roderick, thanks again, brother. Everybody enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Roderick, thank you for coming out, man.
Thank you, man. Take care.
You too.
See yous.
Bye now.